Is Josh Jacobs a bad teammate for saying what he did about the Packers needing a number one wide receiver yesterday?
He's only a bad teammate if he didn't talk to the wide receivers that are already on the team, the guys that are in that room. If he didn't express to them that he expects more from those guys moving forward, then he's a bad teammate. But if he put it out there after talking to those guys behind closed doors, then I don't have a problem with any of the comments that he made yesterday. Laying down the challenge for teammates in a public way can be a motivator. It can be something that galvanizes folks, gets the best out of guys. And so it's yet to be determined what type of impact Josh's comments will have on this Packers receiving core and on the team as a whole. But he's only a bad guy if he didn't tell those guys that he expected more out of them moving forward first.
Is he right in his assessment? You obviously follow this league very closely. You know what it takes to be a good Super Bowl caliber team. Is he right in his assessment of the Packers wide receiving core?
I like the raw materials that they have to work with, but I would just say on the whole, it was a weird year for the Green Bay Packers, right? Started off the season with the Jordan Love injury, had trouble being able to get back on track, and it's been up and down for the quarterback. It's been up and down for a lot of those guys on the offensive side of the ball. What I would chalk it up to is the learning curve that comes along with learning how to win. And we saw last year them become the youngest team to win a playoff game over the last 50 years. And so I think dealing with success is something that you have to try to figure out in this league. Dealing with expectations is something you have to figure out. And when you have a quarterback that's newly minted, getting a contract for $55 million a year, everybody has these lofty expectations for the Green Bay Packers. And I think what you saw this year was a young group of guys not necessarily sure on how they should handle that. So I don't necessarily look at it as a talent issue on that Packers offense or on the team as a whole. They have all of the guys that they need to be successful. I just think it's them being able to figure out what it takes to have sustained success in this league, knowing that they're not sneaking up on anybody.
So, Chris, how do you, if you're Brian Gutekunst, do you just say we need another year to grow? But all we're hearing this offseason is urgency. And urgency to me means you go get a Davante Adams if he's available. You know, I don't know about Myles Garrett. That's somebody obviously every team would want. How do you balance the fact that you say, all right, we now have – this is a win-now deal. We didn't make the steps that we wanted last year, but we have that young talent that is growing. How do you balance that if you're Goody?
Well, I think you have to figure out how you can get the most out of these guys. And sometimes sending the message in the way of a big player acquisition can be something that gets the job done. Other times they need that pat on the back or that hug, and that could be what the offseason looks like as well. So I'm not quite sure which path the Packers will choose, but I will say this, knowing that you have the quarterback, knowing that you have a lot of good young players on both sides of the ball, that just lets you know there's no reason to panic. The Green Bay Packers are going to continue to be successful. They're going to be a double-digit win team. That's what they've been, by and large, since Matt LaFleur has gotten there. It's just a matter of being able to get this team over the hump to have success once you get to the playoffs, and that is something that you want to see them be more consistent with in terms of their performance.
So, Chris, how would you assess Jordan Love? Because I thought last year, as he finished up the season and into the playoffs, he was ascending at a high level. I don't know where you wanted to rank him in your Canty's power rankings, but he would have been a lot higher than where he finished this season. How do you assess his season as a whole?
It's frustrating when you watch it because when you look at the raw materials, the physical ability, the dominant traits, there ain't too many quarterbacks in the NFL that you would have above him. He's a special talent. But when you talk about talent, that just means you can't talk about winning, at least winning when it matters most. And so that's kind of what I'm waiting to see with Jordan Love. Is he going to be able to put together a full regular season? Is he going to be able to be the same guy from week to week, game to game? Both of his seasons as a starter, you can say he had stretches where he played like he was the best quarterback in the NFL. But that doesn't, if you're going to be in that conversation for the best in the game, you've got to put together a complete year. And Jordan Love just hasn't done that, right? He's done it for 6 games. He's done it for 8 games. You want to see him do it for 17 games as the team builds momentum to be at their best in the postseason. And so I think when I talk about consistency from this young team, I'm really looking at Jordan Love in terms of seeing more consistency in his approach and who he is as a player from week to week. And as he becomes more consistent, the team will become more consistent. One of the reasons why they pay quarterbacks what they pay them is so they can be a stabilizing force for the franchise. And I'm not sure that you can call Jordan Love that, even though he is their franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future.
Talking with Chris Canty from Unsportsmanlike. He is live in New Orleans at Radio Row. He is brought to us by GNC. And I believe he has now agreed to a weekly appearance on this show moving forward. So we're very excited about that. Before we move forward with our Packers discussion, I do know that GNC is part of the equation for you doing this. What are you promoting besides your Mardi Gras beads?
Well, I didn't get these the traditional way, boys, so you don't have to worry about that. I wasn't flashing anybody on Bourbon Street last night.
I thought Evan. I figured Evan gave you those.
Not that anybody would want to see that. No, but listen, I'm here. Presented by GNC. Health is wealth. I'm a big believer in taking care of yourself. Spending over a decade in the National Football League, it can be hard on your body, and you've got to be able to take care of it. You got to be able to supplement it. GNC helps me do that. They've been perfecting nutrition for 90 years. They're going to help you get those bigger gains. They're going to help you sculpt that revenge body and overall just have you feeling like you're ready to go. So everybody can benefit from going to GNC. You can go to your local GNC store or visit GNC.com. Remember, health is wealth. Got to take care of yourself. GNC helps me do that.
All right, so Chris, you were part of one of the all-time great front fours, right? You and 𝙒𝙖𝙐𝙬𝙀 and Justin Tuck and that guy that's on Good Morning America that got the sack from Brett Favre gift-wrapped in that one game. I'm curious, when you looked at the Packers' defense, look, everybody wants to do what you guys did, right? Everybody wants that because it gives you the ability in the guys in the back end to not have to worry about blitzing and sending extra people after the quarterback. When you looked at the Packers' defense this year, what did you see from their front? Because Josh Jacobs also said they need a defensive end, which isn't getting quite as much attention as his wide receiver commentary is.
Well, Josh Jacobs want to get everybody, don't he? But I think that just shows his desire, his passion for wanting to compete at a championship level in Green Bay. And I can't blame that guy coming off of the start of his career with the Las Vegas Raiders and so many hopeless seasons. So I understand exactly where he's coming from. And when I look at this Green Bay Packers defense, there's a lot to like. There's talent all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. You look at the defensive tackles. They got a couple of first-round guys up there. They've got a first-round defensive end in Lucas Van Ness. They've got Quay Walker. They've got a lot of guys. They've got impact players on every level. The secondary with Xavier McKinney, who was absolutely awesome. Keyshawn Nixon played really well. I mean, so you've got a ton of talent on that side of the ball. It's just a matter of being able to put it together, and I thought Jeff Hafley did a great job in that regard. They're only going to get better as they have an opportunity to become more familiar with the defensive scheme and the play caller. So I think that defense is going to be on the come. I think they've just got to be patient and stay the course. I don't think you need to overhaul it in any sense. Could you supplement it with an additional pass rusher? Sure. You can never have enough pass rushers. If you learned anything from those New York Giants teams in the 2000s, you can never have enough pass rushers. That defensive line that you talked about, you didn't even mention Jason Pierre-Paul. You didn't mention Rocky Bernard. You didn't mention Linval Joseph. You didn't mention Matthias Kiwanuka. You didn't mention Jimmy Kennedy. I mean, we were 9 deep. You know, guys were fighting for playing time on that defensive line. And that's what you want. You want to be able to develop that rotation of guys that you can consistently rely on. And I think they're well on their way to doing that in Green Bay. They just need a little more time, a little more seasoning. They'll get to where they want to go. So
what would you say, and I don't know what the price tag is going to be, but if you're looking from Goody's standpoint, the 𝙒𝙐𝙐𝙀 Garrett, I just think that's going to be too heavy of a price. The fact that they're not going to 𝙒𝙀𝙇𝘿𝙀 Doncic and keep it just a small conversation. He's open to everybody. But Hendrickson, do you want, if you have a young team like this, and the biggest struggle was getting home with 4 against good teams, the Eagles, the Vikings, that Lions, you couldn't get home against good O-lines. That needs to be addressed. Do you go young again, or do you think at this point do you say, let's make a splash, give up some draft picks, which we usually don't do, and bring a veteran in to kind of set the table for leading a group like you guys had with the Giants back in the 2000s?
Listen, I would take the big swing. If 𝙒𝙐𝙑 Garrett wants to be a part of my team, then I'm going to try to make that happen. And it's not just a matter of what the compensation is. It's also a matter of appeasing 𝙒𝙑 Garrett, right? Because if the Cleveland Browns get to a place where they're willing to trade him, 𝙒𝙑 Garrett is going to have something to say about where he ends up going, because no team is going to fork over that level of compensation without getting the player to agree to a contract extension. So There is going to be some give and take with that. I just don't look at it in the sense that it is a price that's too heavy to pay for a guy like 𝙒𝙑 Garrett. And it's not just the production that he's bringing to the table, but it's the intangibles, a guy that can help you set the culture for what your young team can be. He goes about his business the right way. He's been a model citizen ever since he got drafted in 2017. He's lived up to being the #1 overall pick. Maybe the worst moment he had was in a primetime game against the Steelers, hitting Mason Rudolph in the head. But, I mean, hell, Steelers fans will tell you the way Mason Rudolph played, he might have deserved it. But anyway, all I'm saying is this. When it comes to sending the right message to my locker room about the guys that I'm going to reward and the guys I'm going to pay, trading for and paying 𝙒𝙑 Garrett is the right message, because this is a guy that consistently produced. First guy in NFL history to have 4 consecutive years of 14 sacks or more, right? He's one of 4 guys to have 7 straight seasons with double-digit sacks. He's 6-time All-Pro in 8 seasons in the NFL. If you were ever going to overpay for a guy that was available for trade or in free agency, 𝙒𝙑 Garrett would be the guy. And especially considering where you're at with this Green Bay Packers team, with a lot of these young guys that are on controllable contracts, that is absolutely the way that I would go. If the Green Bay Packers got word that 𝙒𝙑 Garrett wanted to come to that franchise, they need to be willing to move heaven and earth, because that is a team that's a 𝙒𝙑 Garrett away from being into Super Bowl.
Ooh, let's go. Last one for me, Chris. Can you take us back into that 11 season when you guys came into Lambeau and the Packers offense was a complete juggernaut? What was the mindset coming in, and why did you feel like you could pull that off? Because that team offensively, nobody stopped them. What was the plan, and how did you guys do it?
Oh, it's pass rush. It's pass rush, and, we had an opportunity to play them before. We just felt like that was a good matchup for us in terms of being able to get after them in the pass rush and being able to neutralize their ability to run the football. And that's really what you want to do as a defensive line. You want to earn the right to rush the passer, and that starts by being able to stop the run on 1st and 2nd down, because it's hard to rush the quarterback on 2nd and 4. It's hard to rush the quarterback on 3rd and 2. And so that was our mentality, be able to win those early downs and distances so we have an opportunity to get after Aaron Rodgers. We know how talented he was as a player, and we knew that as a defensive line, it was on us if we were going to limit the productivity of that Packers offense in that passing game. So, yeah, I think it starts for us up front, as it does always with a lot of teams. But in that particular matchup, there was even more urgency about being able to get to Aaron Rodgers. And in order to have that impact, we had to stop the run.
All right, Chris, we know you got to go. We want to be respectful of your time. So Evan does every Tuesday at 10:30. So let us know what time window works best for you moving forward. And then, did you ever go up against 𝙒𝙗 as a player? I think you guys might have had two in Dallas when you were in Dallas.
In Dallas, we did.
No,
yes,
I was matched up against Chad Clifton. I was going up against Clifton on the other side.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
the weaker of the ends.
I was
He
smart.
looked down
I
the
stayed
line.
away from 𝙒𝙗. I was the smart guy. Stay away from Tausch.
There you go.
Go over to Tad Clifton. Much easier win.
Yeah, there we go. Let's
Chris,
clip that. I'll send that to Chad.
Make sure you do.
Tell him I said what up. Tell him I'm just joking.
I will.
Chris, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good, guys. Sounds good. And I'll see you guys in Green Bay for the draft.
All right, that is a date. All right, that is Chris Canty. He joins us courtesy of GNC Live Well. That was really fun. He is a smart, interesting guy. He is, Tausch, you've obviously made the segue from playing into punditry or analysis.
Well, he does. Here's what I would say, Jason. He does the work, and talking with Evan, the hardest working athlete outside of me that Evan has ever dealt with. Because a lot of times you'll talk national stuff and it's all generic. Oh, so and so and X and Canty, and I think part of it is because the Packers are on the landscape, and maybe with Evan and the fact that Michelle is a Packers fan, he's pretty dialed into what's going on. This isn't your standard operation. So some pretty interesting things, and the big one for me, Myles Garrett move heaven and earth to get him.
Yeah,
that might be a little strong on my end, but he's a special talent. There's no doubt about that.
Would you move earth?
Purgatory. I would move purgatory.